Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Monday, December 1st, 2025. Of course, that means, that we are, of course, are entering the last month of the year here. So, so, hopefully everybody's has had a good year thus far, and hopefully, we will, But with that being said, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, I'm gonna give people a chance to come in before we get started. Um, you know, um, so give them another minute or so here. With that, so earlier today, when I was watching, of course, my cartoon blocks, got started on watching some of the stuff that came out in February 1943, including, I guess what you could say, Warner Brothers answer to the 1933 Walt Disney Three Little Pigs, Pigs on Polka. Let's see, what else did we see there? Of course, we saw Super Mouse. He doed it. Um, of course, Super Mouse was what we would eventually come to know as Mighty Mouse. So for his first, I think it was 7 or 8 shorts, he was known as Super Mouse. Was dressed in blue and red as opposed to yellow and red. Um, from Terry Tunes there. Let's see now. All right. Well, we're coming up on the 3-minute mark, so I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. So tonight we'll be going over an article from Bleeding Fool from Chris Braley actually tonight. And it looks like the latest in Mike Barron's series, Bronze Star, is coming out. So we will take a look at that article. Well, and since, of course, we kind of only went up through Wednesday last week, we got quite a bit of wrestling news to talk about in the wrestling wrap up. So, Weird Western Bronze Star rides again with more monsters and mayhem. So that's going to be the main article we're going to be looking at. The wrestling wrap up, we'll get all caught up on the latest in terms of the world of pro wrestling. WB get all caught up with what happened at Survivor Series, as well as what led into Survivor Series. I'll get caught up on everything going on with AEW. With their Continental, they just started up their Continental Classic for this year. And Ring of Honor and all that. So, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started? Get to the article. Hopefully, you guys had a chance to also check out last night's show, where Rick and I went over Surefire Comics number 3. I always go back and catch that. But with that being said, let's get into the article here. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream so we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So let's get into this. Weird Western Bronze Star rides again with more monsters and mayhem. Article by Chris Braley, published on the 28th, which of course was this past Friday. So let's see what's all going down here. Well, kind of a burly looking sheriff there. All right, so in the world of comics, rare are collaborations fueled purely by mutual respect and love for storytelling. Such is the case with Bronze Star, a supernatural Western saga created by Eisner-winning writer Mike Baron and legendary artist Pat Broderick. Reflecting on how the project began, Mike Baron, now 76, recalls, quote, I always wanted to work with Pat Broderick. And I said, Pat, I'd love to work with you. And he said, Mike, I'd love to work with you. And I said, Pat, what do you want to draw? And he said, I want to draw a supernatural Western. And Bronze Star was born. Unquote. Okay. Wow. The critical and financial success of the first volume from 2023 affirmed their creative chemistry. Quote, we sold out almost immediately, unquote, Baron shares. Quote, anybody who has seen that book has been blown away. That work would be astonishing for an artist of 35, but for Pat to do it at his age is a miracle. Broderick turned 73 this week. So you got a pair of 70-year-olds who are writing a comic book. Now that's pretty impressive. Of course, we have a lot of guys who are like, who people might say are past their prime, but yet are still cranking out material. That's pretty impressive, to say the least. As we continue on here. While Baron's writing career is decorated with numerous awards, Broderick's talent has been equally acclaimed, though perhaps less widely recognized. Serves as an ambassador for the Inkwell Awards, celebrating inkers and their contributions, and his artwork has left an indelible mark on characters from Wonder Woman to Creature Commandos, which he co-created at DC Comics. Broderick echoes the sentiment humbly, calling the project, quote, the best work I've done in my life, unquote. When asked about the concept, he explains, quote, I wanted to draw something that wasn't spandex superheroes. I told Mike, I'd love to do a Western, but we gotta add a supernatural element to it, a la Weird Western Tales from DC fame, like Jonah Hex and all that. Baron delivered swiftly, providing a full script in less than a week. Wow. Getting a script together for a comic in less than a week, especially at his age, that's amazing. That's amazing work rate right there. Based on an idea he'd had for years. Set in a remote mining town in post-Civil War Alberta, Canada, Bronze Star features a sheriff cursed with lycanthropy. For those of you who don't know what lycanthropy means, it basically is it's the fancy word for werewolfism. So it's a guy basically at the full moon turns into a werewolf. A secret he hides while protecting the townsfolk. This merging of folklore, history, and supernatural horror invites readers into the mysterious world one Baron describes as, quote, the greatest work of Pat's career, unquote. So, post-Civil War Alberta now, I guess they're making a reference to, in other post-Civil War America, United States, because I don't think Canada ever had a civil war like we did here in the States. So they're probably talking about late 1860s, early 1870s Alberta, Canada there. I guess they just figured that it'd make sense for most people to say post Civil War Canada, even though now Rick some of our Canadian friends like Rick Piper would probably know better, but I don't think Canada ever had a civil war. So, Bronze Star. Okay, yeah, we read that part. Invites readers into the mysterious world one Baron describes as the greatest work of, in brackets, Pat's career, unquote. The second volume promises to deepen this eerie legacy. Baron details, quote, Bronze Star 2 has two separate stories. Both involve supernatural creatures of the Northwest. I researched these stories very carefully to make them accurate and true to the legends. Adding to the suspense, there's also an 8-page add-on story at the end of the book readers will not expect, unquote. Wow. Look at that artwork right there. That scenery right there. Interesting stuff there. For Broderick, the new volume is a labor of love. Quote, I worked on it for a year, poured my heart and soul into it, and I know that you guys are gonna love it when you see it, unquote. Fans will find legendary monsters such as the Wendigo and Ogopogo, as well as cameos by Alan Quatermain and Oscar Wilde. I guess the Wendigo is a Canadian creature of legend. With the first printings of Bronze Star Volume 1 selling out quickly, the demand for the supernatural Western tales remained strong. The initial run was met with enthusiastic praise, with critics calling it the greatest Western graphic novel ever penned and drawn. Unquote, parentheses, Peter Brandvold, and, quote, simply stunning, highly recommended, unquote, from Tony Isabella, in parentheses there. As more backers flock to reserve their copies during this Black Friday campaign, it's clear that Bronze Star 2 has captured the imagination of new audiences, building excitement for this next chapter in legend. For those eager to experience this unique blend of supernatural Western storytelling, the time to act is now. Reserve your copy over on Fund My Comic or by visiting bronzestarcomic.com to learn more about the series and join Broderick and Baron's posse of fans drawn to a tale both timeless and thrilling. All right, so there we go with that. Let's see. 14 minutes. All right, I think I'll see if I can find any additional stories that may have popped up since I made my decisions earlier. So with that, let me just go ahead and clear this out for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and Take a quick peek around again to see if there's anything more to. We can look up here. Story lines. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Find adventure that's beyond compare. They are the gummy bears. They are the gummy bears. Alright, let's see that part, please. Try that again. And again, if anything grabs your attention or you guys have any questions, feel free to ask questions, in regards to, anime, cartoons, comics, manga, pro wrestling, of course. While I'm looking to see if there's any other stories we can maybe look at here. Again, I guess with us coming off the Thanksgiving weekend, I guess it would make some amount of sense that and there wouldn't be a lot of news coverage right now. Everybody's home. Everybody was probably spending their time with their families and all that. Oh. Hmm. Just, I guess, not a whole lot to. Let's see. So, what shall I do then? Let's see. I think I did do. Hmm. Actually, let me. I think I will actually. Let me talk a little bit about. All right, so I guess what we'll do right now, because I did have a little more time here, I think I can get one more quickie article or quickie thing in before I get into the wrestling wrap up. So what we're going to talk about here is we're going to look back a little bit on Andy Panda. Andy Panda, who was a character created by Walter Lantz back in, of course, 1930, making his debut in late 1939. I believe it's September or October 1939 in the cartoon that literally said Andy Panda is here or something like that. So let me just go ahead and pull that up here. Learn a little bit about Andy Panda, one of the classic characters in the Walter Lantz Productions library. So, Andy Panda, Woody Woodpecker, Walter Lantz character. Life begins for first appearance. Life begins for Andy Panda in 1939, created by Walter Lantz and Alex Lovey. Adapted by Walter Lantz Productions, of course. He was voiced initially by Sarah Berner from 1939 to 1941, then in episode 1947. For 1942, Margaret Hill Talbot took over, voiced him for that year. 1943, Dick Nelson. And Harry E. Lang did his whistling in 1944, while Walter Tetley took over for him from 44 to 49. And then others, including Dick Beals, Mel Blanc, Dawes Butler, and then Scott Wheel is the current voice of Andy Panda. So let's talk about Andy Panda here. Let's get into Andy Panda a bit here. Again, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So let's get into this. So Andy Panda is a cartoon character who starred in his own series. Of animated cartoon short subjects produced by Walter Lantz. These cartoons, spelled Cartunes, as in kind of a more of a portmanteau of the idea of caricature tune, right? Kind of combining the idea of music and art, were released by Universal Pictures from 1939 to 1947 and United Artists from 1948 to 1949. The title character is an anthropomorphic cartoon character, a cute panda. Andy became the second star of the Walter Lantz cartoons after Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, formerly. He achieved considerable popularity until being eventually supplanted by Woody Woodpecker. So history. The history of Andy Panda here. When Oswald the Lucky Rabbit retired in 1938, following a 9-year run, Walter Lantz's studio went for months without recurring characters. So they were still doing like the cartoon shorts, which started up in 1938, but just didn't have like a star character to focus on. They tried a few, but a couple others, but wasn't until late 1937 when Lantz had a trip to the zoo. There, the main attraction of the place was a young panda, of which Lantz drew pictures. He would then use his drawings to construct a new character. Andy's first cartoon was the aptly titled Life Begins for Andy Panda in 1939. it's kind of funny because I've seen, when I saw that cartoon, you literally have Andy being born in that cartoon. Mama Panda and Papa Panda. Papa Panda, who is I don't remember who voiced him at that point, but I think I do know Dick Nelson did voice him in a number of shorts after that. I don't know if Dick Nelson had been Papa Panda from the get-go, but don't remember that part. But anyways, as we continue on here, in the first three cartoons, Andy's companion was a feisty turtle named Mr. Whippletree, voiced by Danny Webb, who was a character of Eddie Anderson. Eddie Anderson, I believe, was the guy known as Rochester on. I can't think of the. I don't think it was Bing Crosby. Maybe Milton Berle. I can't remember, but anyways, Andy's father, the bragging Papa Panda, voiced at various times by Danny Webb, Mel Blanc, and Dick Nelson, and often the fall guy for Andy's pranks. When Mr. Whippletree disappeared from the series, Papa became to function as both companion and foil. Yeah, and eventually Papa Panda got a shot at his own shorts without Andy. He kind of faded away, and we'll get into that. Andy was at first a mischievous cub whose blustery Papa is frequently trying to prove himself as a good role model. Later, Andy became a standalone star in the vein of Mickey Mouse, and even acquired a Pluto-like dog named Milo, voiced by Bill Shaw, as a pet. Basically, the idea there of Andy starting in late 1941, Andy becoming kind of an everyman. I do know that Andy, of course, had a couple of pretty noted episodes with Andy as the everyman. Of course, include Andy Panda's Victory Garden. Victory Gardens were big back during World War II, as people would plant them, as ways of providing for their own food, but also helping out the war effort. And Meatless too, and Up Comes the Devil is another one. But anyways, the 1940 Andy Panda short Knock Knock featured the first appearance of Lance's most famous character, Woody Woodpecker. By 1942, Andy Panda started wearing clothes and shoes in Nutty Pine Cabin. The character was then given a major overhaul by director Seamus Culhane for the 1944 short The Painter and the Pointer, with a far more malicious personality than he had ever shown previously. In these shorts, Andy was depicted as having little patience for his canine companion, would occasionally threaten violence on him. This new version was disliked by both Lance and audiences, and was not used again. Lance continued to produce Andy Panda shorts until he closed his studio in 1949. Andy's last short was Scrappy Birthday, 1949, which featured his girlfriend Miranda Panda, voiced by Grace Stafford. Grace Stafford, of course, the wife of Walter Lance, as well as the woman who would eventually take over the voice role of Woody Woodpecker starting in 1950, and would continue Woody's voice, I think pretty much up until her passing in 1994. The Woody shorts would end in 1972, the next 22 years, And then I guess, from what I understand, whenever he'd make appearances throughout the 70s and 80s, she'd probably come back to voice the role. But anyways, let's see. When the studio reopened in 1950, the Andy Panda series never returned to production. Andy led a major part of his career in comic books, in Dell Comics' Cracker Jack Comics, and New Funnies. One early Andy Panda comic book adventure was drawn by Carl Banks, New Funnies number 76, 1943. John Stanley also did Andy Panda comic book work. In two 1943 cartoons, Andy Panda's Victory Garden and Meatless Tuesday, Andy's foil was a nameless rooster. In late 19... Now, of course, Victory Garden and Meatless Tuesday were cartoons that were adapted from, at the time, were big things in the World War II, as a way to help soldiers. Of course, U.S. citizens were asked to create Victory Gardens to help produce fruits and vegetables for the war effort. And Meatless Tuesdays was when they would ration meat, so that soldiers could have more protein to their meals. So Andy's foil was and we saw that part. In late 1943, this rooster became Andy's comic book sidekick, Charlie Chicken, quote unquote, hatched in NF70 or New Funnies 79, rapidly growing into the cartoon model. Stories about Andy's and Charlie's often bizarre adventures ran for many years. Some were reprinted domestically as recently as the 1990s, and in Sweden as recently as 2001. Now, we could go through the filmography, but that would probably take a little too long. Other appearances. So here's where some other appearances where Andy would appear that weren't his own series. Andy also appeared alongside Woody in shorts such as Banquet Busters and Musical Moments from Chopin. He also had a cameo in the Woody Woodpecker Polka with Miranda Panda, Oswald Rabbit, and Charlie Chicken. In print, Andy Panda appeared in a Whitman Publishing 1943-44 Better Little Book, quote, Andy Panda and Tiny Tom, unquote, which differed from the usual big little book format by having art on every page instead of art on all alternate pages. Andy was scheduled to appear as a cameo in the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, in the deleted scene, quote, Acme's funeral, unquote, but a gold-colored Papa made the cut. The character appears in the 2018 Woody Woodpecker series, voiced by Scott Whale. Yes. Andy also had a more mature voice with a southern twang in this series. All right, so there we go. So that's a bit of Andy Panda history there. Oh, there we go. All right, so now that we are about 35 minutes in, now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap-up, as we do have a lot to go over, like 5 days worth in this case. So the first thing we're going to, of course, actually, I do need to step away for a moment. I do need to go off camera here for a moment, so I'll be right back. But I'll put some music on the I'm gone when I get back. I'll do the rest of it. So now let's get on to the wrestling wrap up, as we do have quite a bit to go over here. Gonna go back to, of course, last Wednesday AEW. Go back and look back at Dynamite, and then we're gonna go straight into Collision, because Collision was on Thursday. And we did talk a little bit about what to look forward to on on Dynamite, as it were. So Dynamite was Thanksgiving Eve, and then they had the special Thanksgiving episode of Collision. So let's go ahead and see what happened on those shows. So AEW's Dynamite special Thanksgiving Eve took place at the Pinnacle in Nashville, Tennessee, last Wednesday night on the 26th, with, of course, Excalibur, Nigel McGuinness, and Tony Schiavone on commentary. The show opened up with a non-title Continental Classic match, Gold League match, as they started their Continental Classic this past week. Hold on, let's get a log in here. All right, so first off, the show opened up. Oh, wait. Oh, oops. Let's go. All right, so Thanksgiving Eve. So Thanksgiving Eve from the Pinnacle at Nashville, Tennessee, with Excalibur, Nigel McGuinness, and Tony Schiavone on commentary last Wednesday. The opening match of the show saw non-title Continental Classic match, a Gold League match. Kyle Fletcher, who recently lost the TNT title, defeated Kazuchika Okada in his first match in the tournament, gaining 3 points. Then in the semifinals of the tournament to crown the first ever AEW Women's World Tag Team titles, the Babes of Wrath of Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale defeated the Sisters of Sin of Sky Blue and Julia Hart. In a Blue League match in the Continental Classic, Jon Moxley defeated Máscara Dorada by referee's decision, gaining 3 points there. Máscara Dorada representing CMLL in this tournament. Of course, in these matches, they can't have the seconds are barred from ringside. So, in another Gold League match, Kevin Knight defeated Darby Allin, and in the main event for Dynamite, saw in the other Blue League match, Claudio Castagnoli, who's been a perennial contender in this tournament for the first 2 years prior, defeated Orange Cassidy. And what many say was only their second one-on-one match ever against each other. They've been in a number of tag matches together, but not. This is the first singles. This is only the second singles match they had. So now moving on to the Collision Thanksgiving special, awesome from the Pinnacle in Nashville, Tennessee. Another Gold League match. Pack of the Death Riders defeated Speedball Mike Bailey by referee's decision as he locked him in his submission hold, the Brutalizer. In a singles match, Daniel Garcia defeated Matt Menard by a lot of referee's decisions going here. And then in a six-man tag team match. Dalton Castle and the Outrunners, Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum, defeated Eminem TV of Johnny TV, Mansoor, and Mason Madden with Ty Valkyrie in their corner. Eddie Kingston defeated Katsuyori Shibata in a one-on-one match, and it looks like it's possible that Kingston, because following the match, Kingston gave a promo basically indicating he might be coming after Samoa Joe, who recently beat Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Title. It looks like they're building up a possible ops of Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, Katsuyori Shibata, and Hook versus Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page, Eddie Kingston feud. So, in a match that was apparently not taken too well, Tekla defeated Ty Mello with no signs of Anna Jay, as it's been rumored that her contract is coming up and she has yet to agree to re-sign with AEW. There's some talk that Anna Jay may be, once her contract with AEW is up, may be looking to test the waters a bit, see what other companies might want to sign her. And in the main event of the evening, in the Blue League match, Konosuke Takeshi, the current IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, defeated Roderick Strong to get a good start in the Continental Classic by gaining 3 points. So, of course, further, again, with the previous night's match between Kyle Fletcher and Kazuchika Okada, and that match, furthering kind of the friction starting to build between Okada and Takeshita, over who is really the alpha or the main guy in the Don Callis family. So that's all we got for the AEW news. As I think they're, and I know that Konosuke Takeshita is also preparing to participate in Wrestle Kingdom, where in New Japan in in about a month here. Let me just check something here. So over the next few weeks, of course, AEW has some big events coming up. Of course, the Wednesday the 10th and Saturday the 13th, the Winter is Coming events in got Dynamite happening. They got a beta European tour coming up. In Manchester, England, they'll have the Holiday Bash events. The Holiday Bash events in Manchester, England, and then Dynamite on 34th Street and Christmas Collision, 20th and 21st. And they actually will have their next pay-per-view will be World's End on the 27th. So that's all to look forward to in terms of the New Year Smash coming up on the 31st. So those are the events that All Elite Wrestling will be doing in the upcoming weeks here, next few weeks. Now to look at see if TNA did. I think TNA may have had. I don't know if TNA did have a. Let's see now. also. So AEW did have, TNA did have a Thanksgiving special coming from the Full Sail University with, of course, Tom Hannafan, Matthew Ringwald, Gia Miller on commentary. Apparently did not receive a very warm reception, as it were. In the Turkey Bowl 2025 match, Brian Myers outlasted Eric Young, Mance Warner, Ryan Nemeth, Hometown Man, and Trey Miguel to win the Turkey Bowl match 2025. In tag team action, Leon Slater and Mike Santana defeated Mustafa Ali and Trick Williams in a match that was taped in earlier this year in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Ryan Nemeth defeated Krampus. And the main event saw an 8-man tag match. So Brian Myers pinned Ryan Nemeth in the Turkey Bowl match, forcing Ryan to wear the turkey suit. In the main event with the 8-man tag match, Leon Slater teamed with the Systems, Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, and Moose to defeat the team of First Class, AJ Francis and Rich Swann, Jake Something, and Ryan Nemeth. So that all happened on Thursday during Thanksgiving. Then we move on to Friday, and Ring of Honor had a special Black Friday event on Friday. As soon as I find that. There you go. The Black Friday special event held from the Agganis Arena in Boston, Massachusetts, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. Opening match on the Black Friday special event, Ring of Honor event, saw the Shane Taylor Promotions trio of Anthony Ogogo, Lee Moriarty, and Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, the current Pure Champion, defeating the team of Dark Order of Evil Uno, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver. In a tag team match, the former Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team, 2/3 of the former Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag, Marshall and Ross Von Erich with their dad in their corner, be the team of Zach Mason and Warren Johnson. In another six-man tag match, the team of Tommy Billington, Adam Priest, and Jay Lethal defeated the Frat House trio of Rip Garrison, Cole Carter, and Jack Jameson. In the quarterfinal match for the Ring of Honor Women's Pure title, what some may consider an upset, Yuka Sakazaki defeated Serena Deeb. In a mixed six-person tag match, the premier athletes of Story Denali teaming with Arya Davari and Tony Nese with Mark Sterling in their corner, defeated the team of Exodus Prime, Gino, and Charity King. In tag team action, the Swirl of Blake Christian and Lee Johnson defeated the team of Beef and Oro. And the main event saw Commander defeat Mansoor of the M&M collection, M&M TV collection, with of course Johnny TV, Ty Valkyria, and Mason Madden all in his corner. So that's all that went down on Ring of Honor. Now let's get to the WWE news. As of course heading into Saturday night's Survivor Series, which was panned. So on the Go Home SmackDown before which was also pretty panned here, with Corey Graves and Michael Cole on commentary from the Ball Arena in Denver, Colorado. The opening match saw Jey Uso defeat Rusev to advance in the last time is now tournament, as many fans were not happy about that, thinking that Jey Uso is not deserving of the push he's getting. But he advances in the tournament to determine John Cena's final opponent coming up. And then LA Knight defeated The Miz once again. The Miz getting a second gen, still coming up short once again. And in the women's War Games advancement, Charlotte Flair defeated Asuka to let the women get the advantage there. And in a traditional Survivor Series style 10-man tag team match, the MFTs of course Solo Sikoa, JC Mateo, Tamatanga, and Tangaloa defeated the makeshift team of Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin, Al Shelley, Ray Fenix, Sami Zayn, and Shinsuke Nakamura, with Solo Sikoa being the sole survivor in that match. So that was all heading into Saturday's Survivor Series, as we will, of course, get ready to take a look at that. As this past Saturday War Games Survivor Series, the opening match in the War Games was the women's War Games tag team 10-man tag team match, in which the face team of AJ Lee, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, Io Sky, and Rhea Ripley defeated the heel team of Becky Lynch, Lash Legend, Nia Jax, and the women's tag team champions, the Kabuki Warriors of Asuka and Kairi Sane, in which AJ Lee, I believe, got the submission on Becky Lynch with her black tarantula hold, basically a modified octopus hold. But Becky Lynch is now saying that she didn't tap out. But that will continue to feud more. And then in the next match, in the match for the Intercontinental title, Dominic Mysterio was able to defeat John Cena with some, as he initially came out with Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez. They tried to interfere in the match. The referee threw them out, leading to Finn Balor and JD McDonough coming out to try to help him out. He still couldn't get it done, and then the end of the match saw the return of Liv Morgan, supposedly turning on Dominic, only to swerve everybody, give John Cena the low blow that led to Dominic getting the win. John Cena will now, of course, be focusing on his final match coming up in a couple more weeks here at a week from this Saturday, in fact, coming up on Saturday night's main event, which will be his last event as a active competitor. In the women's world title match, Stephanie Vakir defeated Nikki Bella to retain. And in the main event, saw the men's War Games 10-man tag match of the Vision of Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, with Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre getting the win over CM Punk's Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and the Usos, original Bloodline members there, with getting an assist from a masked man performing a curb stomp on CM Punk to help the heel team get the victory here. And while some people think it's Seth Rollins, there are reports out there saying that it's actually maybe Austin Theory. They're maybe doing a big reveal on tonight's Monday Night Raw, which we'll look at as well, to see what's all go down. Like on tonight's Monday Night Raw, we'll move on to that. Tonight's Monday Night Raw, in the aftermath of all that happened on at Survivor Series on Saturday. So tonight's Monday Night Raw coming from. Oh, by the way, last night. Let me go back to War Games for a moment there. As War Games came from, of course, Petco Park in San Diego, California, with Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on commentary. Tonight's follow-up Monday Night Raw, which will probably have in the aftermath, heavy aftermath of what happened. So coming from the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona, in a match for the WWE World Tag Team titles, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee will be defending the tag team titles against the New Day's Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. The two semifinal matches for the Last Time Is Now tournament to determine John Cena's final opponent. LA Knight will be taking on Jey Uso, and Gunther will be taking on Solo Sikoa. It's been rumored that Gunther is the one who they're looking at possibly to win here. But we will we'll wait and see. So that's all I got for the wrestling wrap-up. So now with that being said, now it's good. Now with being today being, of course, Monday, December the 1st, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in niche history. So the first thing I would, of course, like to do is I'd like to wish a happy 60th birthday to Japanese women's professional wrestler Norio Tateno. Now, most people probably, I didn't even realize who she was at first until I looked at her a little bit here. Happy 60th birthday to Norio. Norio Tateno is, of course, former one half of the Jumping Bomb Angels, former WWE, or former, well, at the time, WWF Women's Tag Team Champion. Happy 60th birthday to Norio Tateno, one half of the Jumping Bomb Angels. The Jumping Bomb Angels had defeated, with our partner Itsuki Yamazaki, had defeated the Glamour Girls of Lilani Kai and Judy Martin back at the 1988 Royal Rumble event. Only for them to drop the titles back to the Glamour Girls 5 months later in June. Of course, they were also the lone survivors. They were the Jumping Bomb Angels were the lone survivors in the 1987 in the first ever women's Survivor Series match back in the 1987 Women's Survivor Series. So happy 60th birthday to one half of the Jumping Bomb Angels, former WWF Women's Tag Team Champion Norio Tateno. All right, so now moving on to the next piece of niche history. All right, so on this day in the year 2010, 15 years ago today, day in the year So I figure out what I'm doing here. On this date in the year 2010, 15 years ago today, the final episode of the Twisted Whiskers show from American Greetings Properties aired on the Hub. So the final episode of the Twisted Whiskers show from American Greetings Company, or American Greetings Properties, completed its run on this date back in 2010, airing its final episode there on the Hub. American Greetings Properties, of course, the same company that gave us the Care Bears. All right, so now we're going to go back 5 years ago to the year 2005. As on this date in the year, or 2020, 2020, 5 years ago today, in the year 2020, let's bring that up. The 15th and final issue of Deceased, Hope at World's End, was released digitally by DC Comics on this date 5 years ago. 99 cents, 20 pages. Chapter 15, as written by Tom Taylor, with art by Marco Falla. Let's see, Saida Temofonte did the lettering, and then Rex Locust did the coloring. So 5 years ago today, the 15th and final digital issue of Deceased, Hope at World's End, went on sale on this date back in 2020. And 2020 is just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. As also on this date in the year 2020, I'll bring this up. Part 2 of the original ONA, or Original Net anime series, Obsolete, from Buemon, premiered on the internet on this date back in 2020. So 5 years ago today, the part 2 of the original net animation Obsolete from Buemon premiered on the internet on this date back in 2020. All right, so with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. We'll be back here, of course, with more Niche News tomorrow. Don't forget, this Sunday we'll be continuing our trip down Comics History Lane with a new co-host. Somebody hasn't been on before. Sabrina, a lady named Sabrina, who I met through Rex through Devil Flyer. She'll be joining me to continue our walk down Comics History Lane. I know you'll all get a chance to meet her, and hopefully you'll like what she has to add to the show. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.